Good, good evening, and welcome to Grumpy Old Tottenham, lads. It's Tottenham. And good evening to our one viewer. We hope you are well, and we've already lost a panel member already. This is going well. Plus the fact I started the show really well by the fact that I didn't start the go live until about 20 seconds in. So we're doing really well to impress our guests tonight. We are back from our holidays, although Gibbo, in the words of Danny Dyer, still has his trotters up on holiday in Florida. And just thinking about this, we are now preparing for our 5th season on this channel in the various guises and forms. And, you know, we're reeling from the news that the Tottenham Hotspur Supporter Trust have got the Meet the Podcasters panel, and I can't believe they haven't invited us to be on it. Unbelievable scenes. And then also reeling from the news that our beloved club, in terms of Spurs Kings TV, they ran a podcast content, YouTube content, and we didn't even get on the board, the winter rostrum for the best overseas channel. We're reeling from all these news. What can you do? And we lose out. Hotspur Hippie gets on the panel, we don't. Unbelievable. But anyway, let's move on. Tonight, we are going to be casting a Coldplay fan cam eye on all things at our beloved club. Hopefully, we're going to be joined by Connor. Oh, look, that is great timing, mate, because I'm just introducing everyone. So first of all, good evening, Connor. Welcome back.
Thank you. I don't know what's going on about my internet. This is what's making me really grumpy, grumpy old Spurs fashion at the moment. But yeah, nice to see you both. Nice to see you, Jim.
Good to see you again, mate, as always.
And our very, very special guest tonight is Jim from Oh So Spurs, who is billed as the Thinking Fans Pod. So we're bringing in some more intellectual gravitas tonight to this show, other than the usual bumbling idiots like myself and Gibbo. I'm leaving you out of that, Connor. All right. Welcome to the show. First time on here. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. Yeah, and the thinkers are the guests. They're not me. I just asked them the questions. But yeah, no, absolute pleasure to be on, David. And as soon as you sent me a message, it was a no-brainer. So thanks very much.
It's a pleasure to have you on. Now, in the time-honored tradition of when we have luminaries on this show, such as yourself, we do ask 2 questions. The first one is Nick from the Spurs Show, just to be clear. We always ask our guests for the first time, what was the first game you went to? And the second and most important question is, and this for you, who is part of the eternal optimistic channel at Oh So Spurs, what was the first time Spurs made you grumpy? It doesn't have to, it can be a moment, it could be a game. Over to you.
Yeah, so my first game I remember going to was the 2006. I was quite sport actually. I went to see Spurs beat Southend United. I'm pretty sure, looking back, at the time I wasn't really sure what was going on. I'm pretty sure that was a semi-final of the League Cup actually, because then shortly after that season we went on to was it that season we beat Chelsea? No, that was 2 seasons later we beat Chelsea 2008, wasn't it? But anyway, yeah, it was Southend. Defoe scored a late winner. I think the Southend goalkeeper got man of the match. So it was a pretty drab game. But that was the first one. And that was kind of the start to me becoming completely hooked. And the next question was the most grumpy.
The very first time Spurs made you grumpy.
Yeah, it was definitely, I know what it was. I'd had an eternal optimism starting supporting Spurs at the time I did. My uncle, who's been a season ticket holder for 35, 40 years, whatever it is, he said, we're on the up. You have started supporting this club at the best time. And I fell in love with Martin Jol when he became our manager. Him getting sacked at half time when I was watching that Europa League game and the news breaking crushed me. I just could not believe we'd make a decision like that. I was so convinced we did things differently to some of those other clubs around us and that we were onto something special with Martin and we had the integrity to stick with him and give him more chance. And we didn't. So yeah, that was the first time.
So when you were dancing at Wembley a few months after that with One Day Ramos, had you forgotten Big Martin Jol by then?
If you asked me to list the last 10 Spurs managers, I'd probably miss out Ramos by mistake quite often. It's weird. I still affiliate the Martin Jol era as a much happier era and a more memorable one than Ramos. And we won a trophy under Ramos. And
Yeah.
even though I do think trophies are the ultimate and they are the pinnacle and they are what you should strive for, there's the Redknapp era and the Old era, to me, stand out so much. Do you reckon it's an age thing as well? Is it like a thing when you're at that kind of age where just football was absolutely everything? You know, I didn't have the adult responsibilities of life taking me into the real world. So then I think I just fell in love with the upward trajectory we were on, the constant attacking football, always outscoring your opposition, just the characters, the Julio Gomez in goal, like just characters like that. You knew they were a bit rubbish, but they're also really good at the same time. Like they were world class at one thing and then deeply flawed at something else, which was why someone like Real Madrid would never go for them or Man United. But that was why they were us. They had character, they were unique, and they could pull off something special in their day. I love that.
What were your memories of that time, Connor?
Yeah, I mean, similar to Jim, because we're probably similar-ish age, Jim. We're bringing down the average age of grumpy old Spurs, I think.
Yeah, by a lot.
Yeah, by a fair
By a
amount. So I'm
lot.
32. So yeah, that felt like the first time really the tide was starting to turn a little bit, and we were starting to challenge for Europe consistently, weren't we? Under both of those managers. Players obviously, as you get into sort of the Redknapp era of the likes of Bale, Modric, and Van der Vaart, it's just was significant improvements on watching the likes of Gary Doherty do a shift up front as well as at centre back. So yeah, very, very positive memories, I think, of that period. But as you say, I think it was, again, as has often been the case with Tottenham, we were just a little bit away from really kicking on. Obviously that was then repeated under Poch and so on going forward. But
we'll move on. But I mean, Jim, I would have to question your uncles who'd been going by then for about 30 odd years and was optimistic and said we're on the up. Is that a true Tottenham fan? If he's been going already for 30 odd years, I mean, I've got to question that one.
Well, I think he'd gone through the whole kind of Sugar period where actually, he always speaks very fondly of Sugar. He said, this guy saved us. He always said to me, like, those jumbo screens look dated now, but those were state of the art. This guy pulled us out of some doldrums. And we should remember him for that, even though there was some less nice bits as well. But it's an overall, like that, the trajectory we were on, the initial, I guess then ENIC was pretty new, so no one really kind of knew what to expect, but we'd signed some really good young players and we'd gone all in on attacking football and we hadn't sacked Martin Jol yet. So it was all kind of like, oh, this is exciting. We're back in the Europa League, competing where we should be in our cup.
Yep.
It was all about that, wasn't it? And then, like Connor said, dropped some names there, like Bale and Berbatov. Oh, Berbatov, let me get me started on him. Like, there were just so many flair players and just who were just so good. You look back and you're like, really? We signed players that many clubs in the Premier League have never witnessed, a level of. Like, players that would go down as a statue player for them. We had like quite a few of them in quite quick succession coming through. The Modric as well. Like, he went to Real Madrid and they built a midfield around him for 10 years. He came to Spurs. Like, we had some really good players in amongst those periods.
I mean, I will move on a sec, but I mean, I totally agree with you about Martin Jol. So obviously, I'm way older than you two, and far more embittered, and my family lineage of Tottenham goes back to 38. But when our Supremo says we've got our Tottenham back, I would say that Jol came in, and it was after. So we had the Santini debacle. And then we had the Hoddle and the Pleat season, the one year before, which was awful, right? And Arsenal won the league at our place. Sorry for swearing. But what really encapsulated what I loved about Martin Jol was when he had that argument on the side of the pitch with Arsene Wenger. And that's when you have someone who's standing up for the club, and we've been a bit of a laughing stock. And I loved him. I also loved the fact that he got sent off against us in the 1982 League Cup semi-final for fighting with Tony Galvin. So he had an understanding of what the club was about. And I agree with you, Jim. I loved Martin Jol. I absolutely loved him. I thought he was great, a great character. But anyway, let's move on. And very quickly, we've prematurely wished Leon a happy birthday last week. It was a happy birthday the last Friday. There he is with his dog of the day, Dolly. So happy birthday, Leon. So just very quickly on that, and then let's get into let's talk about Tottenham. So obviously, Reading. In the our first pre-season friendly. I don't subscribe to Levy Vision, sadly. However, I think maybe you both watched the game. So, Jim, what were your thoughts overall if you watched the game or seen the highlights?
I must confess, I watched some dodgy highlights afterwards because it
Same
was my
as me.
son's actual birthday that day. I had tickets to the game and I was all excited. I bought 2. I invited my uncle along, like this little surprise for him, getting all ready to go. And she said, what are you doing? It's like, good game tomorrow. She's like, have a real hard think. What's happening tomorrow? I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. She's like, have a real hard think and have a look at your son. I was like, yeah, so I'm not going to Spurs tomorrow. And then I gave away the tickets to someone. But yeah, I have seen the extended highlights of it. Initial thoughts were like, when the lineup came out, I caught that. I thought, am I overly reading into Divine as a 10? Is that one of those like manager statements where it was like, I really need Gibbs White? But then I thought, this is a friendly. I'm massively overthinking it. And Thomas Frank is not going to do a Mourinho and play those kind of games, I don't think. In its centre back as well, it was obviously interesting. And the goalkeeper, of course, like Kinski coming in. I do think there was something in the Kinski thing. I think Frank's kind of thinking, I need a deeper look at this guy. Whether that's to establish whether he's challenging Vicario for a first team spot or whether it's to check if he's a player for certain game types, we don't know. But I definitely think he's interested and he's perked his ears up. So yeah, that was interesting. Kudos. I mean, we've been missing that player since Aaron Lennon left, haven't we? The player that actually gets you to lift your bum off your seat when they get the ball. Whether his output's better than Lennon's or not, last year's numbers would say no, but Lennon was still a brilliant player. I think Kudos has proven in a one-off season he can do it. So I'm pretty excited by him. Yeah, and the performance it was a shame to see Sonny like having a game like that. It was just a friendly. I get that. He's probably been really enjoying the off-season. He's built up this moment for years to get that trophy over the line and sacrificed a lot for it. But it was sad to see, a bit like when you're kind of, family pets starting to limp out the door a bit more slowly. You're like, no. But I'm hoping, like, because he's part of Spurs, isn't he, forever now? He's done it. He's captained the club and lifted a major trophy. So never want to see him get to that stage. But it did reaffirm some fears that day is getting very close now. But yeah, overall, I thought it was good. It was nice I think people may have over-exaggerated a little bit of the coaching comments to say like, it's good to see the iPads out again. Like, we didn't do that before and we didn't have any coaches doing anything. They were just, stayed at home or faced the other way. But I get what they mean. The underlying sentiment that you could understand what we were doing tactically as a fan a bit more. You could see the changes. The changes were logical. You were like, this is what I would do. You know what I mean? Whereas before it was like, that's not what I would do. What we're doing. So yeah, overall, I thought it was like a sensible performance and a sensible setup, but it highlighted to me that we have to give this guy a couple more senior ready-mades, is the term, isn't it? Players for him to have a team that's going to compete against much better opposition.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get onto transfers in a sec. Connor, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think, Jim, our kids obviously share a birthday because it was my daughter's birthday on Saturday as well.
No way.
Similarly, I didn't watch it live, but have watched the highlights. And yeah, look, I think I agree with a lot of the points Jim made. I think certainly we were seeing, a team that was playing out from the back more effectively. I think setting up in the way that it was. I think Kinski is an interesting one, to Jim's point. I think with Kinski, he's certainly better on the ball than Vicario is, and he's certainly better at claiming crosses generally than Vicario is. What I'd probably like to see a little bit more from him is actual shot stopping. I know that sounds crazy for a goalkeeper, but I think that's definitely what Vicario has got over him. So but I think that one's one to watch. Similarly to Jim, Kudos obviously impressed me when he came on. He's got that spark and he's got that sort of electric pace combined with very, very hard to get off the ball. I think he's going to be a player that's exciting for us to watch this season, and I think certainly when we play against low blocks, he's going to be a lot more effective than what we have seen in the forward positions, just because of his ability to actually beat a man. Vuskovic, someone needs to check his birth certificate because I'm not having his 18.
100%.
I look at Vuskovic. I think is it me? I think he looks a bit like David Warner. With that
I
haircut.
can see that a bit.
Yeah,
yeah, I can see that a bit.
Yeah,
hopefully, I hope he has the arrogance of him.
Yes, but less of the sandpaper about him.
Yeah, quite.
Yeah.
But I mean, what a debut!
It's a strong jaw, isn't it?
Yeah, very.
Yeah. So I think it's a couple of points here, and it's quite interesting. And it's what I love about our fan base is the fact everything is always a reaction to the thing that's before. So of course, Ramos banned the tomato ketchup. Red that brings it back in. AVB probably banned the tomato ketchup, right? And so it's like I love the way that the Angier is kind of being portrayed as like Trotters International. This time next year, it's all a bit ramshackle. It's a good old Aussies and this, that, and the other. And there is no such thing as coaching. There's no such thing as tactics. I mean, you look at Eintracht Frankfurt away, for example, where we basically played the perfect European away performance last year. And now everyone's got, as you said, Jim, we're doing set piece formations. We've got the iPads out, and it's like Ange and the coaching staff had like chalk out and board like that, right? So that's what's interesting to me. I mean, we're going to get onto transfers in a minute, and on there is Sonny, but we might as well talk about this now. So on my appearance on Oh So Spurs, when we did, I think, a keep or sell, one of your esteemed colleagues, and I can't remember which one it was, whether it was your Scottish sounding colleague who I think lives in Ireland, or your colleague who I think lives in Dubai. I kind of hate to say this, and I get a lot of stick for this. I've kind of been on the Sonny out train for a couple of seasons, really, because I think it's about selling well. And one of your colleagues put in an almost Oscar-winning performance and defense as to why Sonny should stay last season, and it nearly moved me to tears. And I said, "No, you're right. Fair enough. Let's keep him." I just think with him now, I mean, even if you look at the final when he came on, and he's lost that pace, and I think when players lose 2-3 yards of pace, and he doesn't have an all-round game to make up for it. You look at Scholes, you look at even Rooney dropping back, playing in midfield. Yeah. I don't think Son's never had that game. And I think where he's always been at best at is obviously combining with Kane, and Kane does the movement on the turn and drops him in behind, and he bursts through and scores. I think Maddison was meant to do that. I think Maddison was meant to replace the number 10 of that Kane work, and it's not really happened for one reason or another. And I do think, and I'm really delighted for him that he's lifted a trophy, and I mean that. I think he decided to stay, and we've had 10 years service out of him. And I think at one point, I'm sure he could have gone and had better offers. So I'm absolutely over the moon he lifted the trophy. I did think it was time to move on a couple of seasons ago. And to Gibbo's point, there was actually something on, I was watching something on Twitter this morning, or X, where they showed all the goals that he got the golden boot, and you saw his pace, his movement, his confidence. It was like that. And I think it's gone now. And so I do think, I personally think with Son, as soon as he plays that game in Korea, I think he's gone.
Yeah. There was some, I haven't verified it. I saw there was a post someone put, I don't know if you looked into it, but there was a clause about 2 years ago we signed up to that preseason tour, and there was a clause about having Son there as part of that, and some conditions to it that mean it might as well not just be that it's the tour where it is. It might just as well be like, it's a nice way to have a proper farewell with the player and the fans that deserves it. And we'll always harp on about it. There was that moment where we were really in a bit of a downward spiral under that kind of, was it the Conte doldrums, and we were just about to go Project Stellini, and Was that when Son signed his contract? It was during one of
No,
those.
it was
Nuno, wasn't it?
yeah, it was the
Nuno.
Harry Kane, Gary Neville golf
That was
extravaganza
it.
summer.
The
if you
Nuno bit, wasn't
remember.
it? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But it was a really cruddy period, and you're like, when you're a star player, to be like, I'm putting pen to paper, don't care. You're like, wow, because he could have really gone to most clubs at that stage as well if he'd wanted to force our hands. And for that, I think there's the rare case where you do put the player before the club in a small way, and you say, we want you to get the proper send off. We don't want to force you out the door to anywhere. We want to be patient and find a move that you would find enjoyable and that respects you. But I agree with you, David. I think it's would be clinging on a bit too long. You know, kind of the stage of a receding hairline where you just need to shave it off. The comb over is a bit too obvious now.
That's two metaphors now for Sonny leaving. One is the pet, the family pet, and now it's the hairline.
Yeah.
You know, I think we might be kind of dumbing you down a little bit because I've never heard you say this kind of stuff on Oh So Spurs. I mean, you know, the test tonight is by the end of the show, are you going to make us more optimistic or are we going to make you more grumpy? and so far as we get through this, we've had two metaphors. So let's move on to the old transfers smorgasbord. Here we go. Look at this. Now, I've heard this rumor that there was an incident at the Coldplay concert last week. And the other rumor I've heard is that apparently we've triggered a release clause for Morgan Gibbs-White. Have you two got any intel about Morgan Gibbs-White?
Nothing specific. I mean, every in the know tells us they know what's going on, and they, you know, you read one briefing that's quite clearly from the Forest side to one journalist, then you get one of the many Tottenham in the knows that obviously are in Daniel Levy's spare bedroom or whatever and know exactly what's going on. So look, I think this one we just need to see how it plays out. Obviously, as more and more time goes on, the more and more nervous that we get. I don't get why this deal, to be honest, stops us from moving on other targets that we need to be moving and focusing on. Because to be honest, to some extent, you know, I'm a huge fan of the Gibbs-White signing if it happens, just because I think you can never have a shortage of top quality players, and I think he gives you lots of different options. Obviously, he can play in the 8 or the 10. We know Maddison gets injured a lot. We know Maddison and Kulusevski are both out at the moment, etc., etc. So I'm a big fan of the signing, but one could argue there were bigger glaring priorities in the starting 11, and so I don't get why everything else has gone silent whilst we deal with this. You would think they would be able to focus on other targets in the interim, but yeah, let's see what's happening. I think everyone's lost a bit of energy for it. I think we were all, you know, jumping for joy when we thought that suddenly there was a bit of a change in the way that the club operates with Kudus coming in, this release clause being triggered, the rumours of investment. That all feels a bit of a distant memory now, doesn't it?
Well, we're going to get on to reasons to be cheerful shortly, so park that grumpiness for a second, Connor. So, Jim, what's your view on this saga? How do you think it's going to play out?
Yeah, I agree with most of all of what Connor said, really. The thing is with this is I wouldn't take much ITK stuff seriously, because if anyone's worked in a corporate organisation like Spurs is, I'm not saying they have to be similar to Spurs, but any organisation that has a legal team, you will know that certain topics, once they go from being a commercial conversation to a legal situation, people are completely under lock and key under what they can share. And I just can't see a world in which someone sits in those boardrooms with Langer, Levy, Vinay, etc., and goes, 1 second, as they're texting under the table to 24681 Spurs ITK on Twitter, don't tell them it came from me. I'm risking my job, my mortgage, my family, but we admire the player. And they're just never going to say that stuff as well. I admire him. You know, it's just the language used. It just feels like a lot of guesswork. I think the reality of the situation is we wanted him. We had spoken to his agent who'd said, by the way, guys, there's a release clause. If you put this in, you'll get him. No one realizes there's some, point 102 of the contract which says you're not supposed to share that information. over a technicality. And we expect the deal to be done. And then suddenly Marinakis just says to his legal team, go through that contract and find a reason to stop this happening. And they find that clause and go, technically, we could hold them to this. And that's where we are. Everyone's under an NDA. No one's allowed to talk to each other. Marinakis is saying, I've got evidence you tapped him up. We're saying you probably didn't because he won't play his hand. So, but when the worst case scenario is a multi-window transfer ban, would you risk calling the bluff? Or would you just go, come on, is there an amicable solution to this then that we can work on? But Forest's response is, I'm just going to take the phone off the hook and walk out the room for now. And I think they're just looking for their own replacement, getting their own house in order first. They're not going to have an issue selling Gibbs White. If they say, right, checked, he's available for 60 million, even if Spurs walked away, I think they'd find a buyer pretty quickly. So I still think it's leaning on slightly more likely to happen than not. But I agree with Connor, like, this shouldn't be a reason to pause. There should be a reason to go, let's focus on the positions we needed even more than that number 10 and still get him at the end of it. Make him the deadline day special, but let's get our ducks in a row and sign those obvious positions we need more than the 10. But please, Spurs, don't do the thing where you bring in the 6 we need and then you go, actually, do we really need that 10? And then sign some random guy on loan from Leipzig like Timo Werner. Like, just let's do that thing where, like Chelsea and Liverpool do, and you just go get 3 really good players in the same window that cost quite a bit of money. Because it'd be nice I think you're just going to need that just to stay in the top 4 as a minimum this season. So
yeah, the words Timo and Werner are banned on this channel. Okay. So that's just I can't. Don't trigger me, for God's sake. All right. Look, some really good points made. Look, I do think there's a lot of ITK guff around all of this. So I'm going to say my 2 pence worth. So number one, every contract that there is that anyone ever signs, there's a confidentiality clause for the whole contract, right? You are not meant to talk about the terms of your contract with anybody else apart from your advisors who are advising you to sign the contract or not, right? So the release clause, when people say the release clause is confidential, the whole bloody agreement is confidential from the end to end. And everyone knows that the standard working practice is an agent or a friend of an agent or a friend of a friend of an agent. It leaks from time to time as to what the release clause is. And sometimes even the selling club want to leak what the release clause is because they want the player off the books for one reason or another, right? So I think what's happened here is obviously they got told what the number was. They put the bid in. I suggest that Tottenham were a bit premature, that maybe Gibbs White had headed down to Hotspur Way, had done a medical, they'd agreed personal terms, which is not unusual. They'd done all the things that they'd done without actually stopping to consider that Forest had accepted the fact that this is the offer, it's triggered the release clause, and off we go. And that's where I think we've gone wrong. My old showbiz mate Simon Jordan said on TalkSport last week that there was a classic thing where Levy rang him up and said that they triggered the clause for Routledge on the last day of the window or something like that. And Jordan said, well, you're too late. And then Levy goes, no, I've got the player here for the medical. Right? So it's just not unknown. And believe me, and as much as I don't like Mr. Levy and all the rest of it, this is standard practice in the whole industry. Okay? Look at Willian. Look at even Emmanuel Petit. They all came to our place and headed off down the road. So I think you're both completely right. It doesn't stop us from doing, other clubs do deals for other players. It's not just a one-stop thing. And there's a lot of people in that club paid a lot of money who can get on and do the other signings. So I'm hoping that we get him in. I think he's a good player. I think he's a great player, improves the squad. It'd be interesting if we did get him in, because I still have this sneaky feeling, not based on anything, that I just can't see. I've got a feeling that I can't see Maddison and Frank getting on well, but we'll see about that. And we'll see what it means for Maddison if we sign him. And Kulu's not back for a few months yet as well. But let's move on. The next one is Palhinha, Bayern Munich. I'll go to Connor first. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think if we were still under Ange, we're playing under an Ange system. Palhinha of Fulham. I've not watched him a lot about Munich, and by all accounts, he hasn't actually played a lot. But would be perfect for that number 6 in an Ange system, whereby you just need someone to cover vast acres of space and break up the play. What I worry a little bit about him, particularly, and from watching some of the Reading highlights as well, and just some of our issues, we're still very, very reliant, I think, on Romero progressing the ball and playing through the lines. And I think the midfielders that we've got struggle a little bit with picking up the ball, turning under pressure, and being able to play forward. And I just worry that Palhinha is another. He offers a lot of good stuff in terms of, being super experienced, being a bit nastier, being a proper man, um, being a set piece threat, etc. But I just worry a little bit with his ability to actually progress the ball and pass, and I wonder whether this is why I prefer the links to, and it's not going to happen because the price tag's not there. It is too much. Is links to the likes of Walton, right? Because for me, Adam Walton is that sort of deep lying playmaking 6 rather than the sort of destroyer 6, which I think will be a little bit less important when we're not pushing our fullbacks up into the inverted 10 position, etc.
Jim.
Yeah, echo most of what Connor said. I think what we need more than I think it's all build up. You need a destroyer. I'm not sure you need that as much in a Thomas Frank system. I think the way we played under Ange, obviously that was a key position to have because of the way we, went so aggressively forward, obviously, and having a player that's predominant mindset was around covering lines defensively and being back to prevent a counter attack and to win the ball. That's kind of what you needed from a midfielder at that time. But I think under Frank, that'll be less stark. But I still think we kind of need it. But as Connor said, the most important tribute we need is a deep line midfielder who can connect defense to attack. That's where we struggle, and that's why when Van der Ven and Romero were out, we struggled so much. I don't think Davies and Danso are awful defenders, but you really notice the drop off when they try to progress the ball and just how less effective the whole team is as a result, especially in modern football when you're building from the back. The second phase of that build, you need that midfielder there who's going to progress the ball. Now you've got Bentancur only who can kind of do it, but I still don't think it's playing to Bentancur's strengths. And then who have you really got? There's not really anyone there who stands out. So if you get in Palhinha, you've got a great tackler, a great ball winner who's going to have a use for certain games. So I think if you can get him on loan with an option to buy, you're never really going to actually take because he's 30 years old and you probably do better with a bit more time. I think it's more about, bringing in a deep line playmaker type midfielder. And I think that's why we haven't gone for like anyone like Gomez from Wolves on a serious note, anyone of that nature, because again, they can't pass through the lines. So they're just not worth the money. And the ones that are available in Wharton, we're not going to spend £100 million. Plus he's a Liverpool fan. Plus Liverpool have probably already spoken to him and said, hold on, pal, in 2 years' time, we'll be in for you. Just don't do anything silly and go to a club like Spurs. They'll never let you go. So especially if Charlie Kane's your agent, and that's probably a mandate for joining them that we're going to introduce. But I think we, if we signed him, I'd be like on loan. I would say we still need 3 other senior players on top of Palhinha. Do you know what I mean? Whereas if we sign Wharton, I'd go, right, that's one of the 3 we needed. That's the difference for me.
No, sorry, just a bit of housekeeping, Jim, and I want to apologise to you. This is one of our loyal viewers, Keith. He's always late. We have issued him a final warning, and we had Gareth Dace on for a special last week about Tottenham in the 1980s, promote his new book, Hot Shot Tottenham, and Keith was late for that, and we're trying to be like showing when we have guests on from other esteemed podcasts and YouTube, we're trying to show our best face. And Keith, he's on a final warning and he's turned up late again. So I just want to apologise again for Keith's tardiness. And it's and then I've also he's now screwed up my slides. What are you doing, Keith? Come on. Right. So look, my thing about Palhinha, and I know I'm an 80s relic. I'd like to see so what my profile of a number 6 is. I want a leader. I want a bastard. I want someone who is basically, I'm not Romero's biggest fan, and we don't need to get into that now. But what I liked about Romero in the final is that he did the huddle in the same half as the United huddle. He wound up at Harry Maguire, and I'll give him that. And we've seen it all too rarely. Romero's a winner, and he managed that team that night as a captain. And it's the first time I've ever really seen him do that, to be honest. And if only he showed his commitment to us the whole time. But we'll part that. So a Palhinha, I don't have a problem with from the point of view if he breaks up the play, protects the back four, particularly if Romero's staying this season, and frankly in the World Cup season, we're not going to get as many games out of him as usual. Van der Ven's got his injury issue, so we are going to have to go back to probably our third or fourth choice centre backs, and you have a number 6 who breaks it up, and then there's five. He can only if he only passes it 5 yards to someone who can play the ball. I don't have a problem with that. So if we got him in for 20, 30 million, I don't have a problem. If we went down to Selhurst Park, whacked 100 million on the table, and said we'll take Wharton, that's a serious statement of intent. I can't see that happening either, but I don't have a problem with us getting him. And then Archie Gray, who we know that Frank wanted last summer, if we're going to teach him to be as number 6, then I don't have a problem with the signing either, because it helps him develop as well. Moving on, we've got Wissa next. Now, apparently he's left the pre-season tour in Portugal. He's come back to the UK. Newcastle put a bid in. I'll go to you, Connor, first. Is this someone that you'd like to see?
It's a difficult one, I think, because I think if Richarlison was to go, I think it's a good stopgap type replacement for him, depending on what the price is. I mean, I think I saw Newcastle offered 25 million, which got turned down. He's about to turn 29, isn't he? So to me, anything more than sort of 30 million, it's starting to make me wince a little bit, to be honest, for a player who is good, but I think it's going to always be a second choice for us. Obviously, he could compete with Solanke, and I'm not, to be honest, I'm not completely sold on Solanke at the moment. I know the club is going to give him at least one more year, given he's only had 1 year, and we signed him for 65 million or whatever it was. So, but we're going to come on to Richarlison, so I won't talk about that now. But yeah. Look, I wouldn't mind him if he was to come in to replace Richarlison, but for me personally, I think anything once you start going over 30 million, I think that would be a bit pricey for someone who's 28, 29 and only really done it for 1 or 2 seasons.
Jim, thoughts?
Yeah, the issue is his age to me. If he's turning 29 this year, he's 2027's problem. Again, you're looking to replace him. I would rather, knowing how we work, if it's the difference between spending £30 million on him, that therefore is not going to go towards a higher quality midfield option, I'd rather just leave the left wing with the option it's got and get the more expensive, better midfielder that we need personally, if that's going to impact one another, although I'd rather both. But we're also quite well stocked on the left wing at the moment. I appreciate that Richarlison and Son might leave, so it suddenly might look quite light, but I can't see us offloading too many senior players at once. We're already likely going to get rid of Basuma. Likely Son's going to go as well. Romero's probably in his last season in the Spurs shirt. I wonder if they're thinking we do need some experience around. For all of Richarlison's injuries, he is still a player that has good leadership skills, is experienced, and when he's fit, adds value. So I just wonder if we're probably not going to get, unless that rumour of £50 million offer for him, which I just can't see being true. I just see a world in which Richarlison gets another shot under Frank and actually does all right under him. Also, if we sell Richarlison, you then need to sign a backup striker. Well, I guess you get it in Visser, who could play there. So, I don't know. If you get £50 million offer for Richarlison, it completely makes sense. If you don't, I think it's the wrong transfer. And I don't think it's guaranteed to even work, really. I think it's the kind of signing that you could see Man United making and everyone laughing at them for it in hindsight at the end of it. And it, put it this way, it makes me feel quite happy and relieved in a weird way that Newcastle are going for him, in the sense that Newcastle's window hasn't been as strong as I thought it would be. It started out with so much intent. And when you go from the names they were linked with, like Ekitike and keeping Isaac, to losing one of those and not getting the other potentially, and then ending up with Visser, you're a bit like, I'm not particularly, concerned. And even Elanga, I'm like, well, if that's another one, I'd say, could imagine Man United having made that signing, but they've gone and made the only one more Man United in signing Mbuemo for that price. So yeah, I think we can do better, and it's just kicking a problem back a year rather than solving it.
I mean, they got the outgoing. I think with Richarlison, so there's a couple of things. We need another striker as a backup to Solanke. I think we would all agree on that, right? And the Valise experiment looks like it's ending. Okay. Now, I can't rely on Richarlison to be a backup for Solanke because his injury record is so poor, right? And I know that everyone was going on about, Scott Munn changed the medical team last year. They got rid of, I think his name was Jeff Scott or something. He'd been at the club for 20 years. But Richarlison has always had injury. He's always been injury prone. He had a lot of spells out at Everton. He never did. I can't remember him doing a full season anywhere, maybe at Watford, right? Now, he put in a great performance in the Europa Cup final from the point of view of he was kind of like, did a whole load of work on protecting Destiny, because I think the first half they were getting a lot of joy down Destiny's flank in the Europa. Second half it was a lot tighter, but that's not why we bought him. We bought him to be a striker and to play across the line. And I said this before, I was surprised when we bought him that he's actually not a very good football player. And if we would get money for him, I would get rid of Richarlison. And I think we need a striker. So I don't have a problem getting him in if it's a 25-30 million deal and Richarlison goes. So I think we've talked about Richarlison. Sonny we've touched on as well. I think we'll go. The other one is, I appreciate we're pressed for time. Josh Keeley's going. There's a bit of disquiet in the fan base about it based on his performances at Orient. Jim, any thoughts?
I think it's the right move for the player, so it should happen. Basically, there's this thing of you want to keep your shiny academy prospects at Spurs because, like I said at the start, when we were talking about why we loved Spurs, supporting them at the time. Remember when we were pretty mid-table in that first game, and I went to watch. My uncle went, "Yeah, but look at the back of that program. This is why we're different to Chelsea." And it was all the academy players on the back. And that was part of our identity, wasn't it? That we brought through our own. But I think that was partly because of the size of the level we were competing at, rather.
Yeah.
Not the size of club, because we were an enormous club. Now we're in the Champions League. You can't afford to blood lots of youngsters and be patient and grow them. You've got to do that thing now like City do. You wait for someone else to do it and you rip them off them when the time's right and you flex your muscles. But at the same time, you nurture just your one or two super standout prospects. And it's a massive shame because it's the losers are the players, right, a lot of the time. And I love the idea of bringing through your own academy products. But yeah, I think he's one where it's better for him. Go get some first team football. Good lad. If you're good enough, you'll get the opportunity to come back. So it makes sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing with Keeley, of course, is he's not homegrown even, and he doesn't count as
true.
club trained. So he's effectively you've got to treat him in your mindset as if he's a player that you've bought, haven't you? So yeah, look, I agree. I mean, there is this ironic thing with Spurs fans that everyone complains that we never sell anyone and we're rubbish at selling, and then as soon as we sell anyone, why have we sold this player? I mean, he's it's like the perennial moaning, isn't it? But I think to me,
that's why we're on Grumpy Old Spurs, mate. That's what we do.
That's true. That is true. He's not. Look, they've bought Kinski. You've got Vicario already. Austin is obviously the club trained option. So there's your three keepers already, and so yeah, for me, it's the right decision, and we move on. And look, when you sell academy players, you're going to get them wrong now and again, like City have done with some of theirs. Delap and Palmer and Gittins, who's gone to Chelsea now, etc., etc. There's loads of examples, but that's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah, I mean, Austin, right? he didn't make his debut until he was 26, right? And we had obviously injuries, and in he went. And to be honest with you, I thought the fact of the matter is I was very pleasantly surprised when he made his debut for us, because I thought he must be.
Yeah,
If
I
he
thought
hasn't
it was
played for us by the time he's 26, I was just imagining some kind of wobbling jelly in goal that was just awful. And he did all right, actually. I thought he did all right.
good. He did.
Now I know that.
He did, yeah, outlived expectations for sure.
Absolutely. Now, I mean, the big losses of obviously Alfie Whiteman's gone, so we're going to lose his photography, his social media, and his DJing from the squad, which I don't know who's going to fill that gap. It's like Eric Dyer's allotment at Tottenham and Tottenham Way. I mean, who's looking after Eric's allotment these days? No one knows, right? So that's kind of the thing that we do. And King Hoddle, perennial moaning is, well, that's exactly right, and that's why you're watching Grumpy Old Spurs, mate. So I think that covers that off. So what we want to do in the last part of the show is this. As we know, Jim at Oh So Spurs, which as we are, is the Thinking Fans pod, right? And we are Grumpy Old Spurs. We're like at different ends of the spectrum in terms of optimism or delusion or pessimism or realism, whatever way you want to look at it. So what we want to do now is we are going to do reasons to be cheerful. Okay, so the test of this is whether by the end of the show that we've made Jim slightly grumpier about Tottenham, or whether Jim has made us more optimistic about Tottenham. So here we go. So what I want to do is go around is that at the moment where we are now, it's the here and now, at this point in the window, it's in the current, it's in the present. Don't look back. Like, what are our reasons to be cheerful at the moment? Okay, so I'll go to you first, Jim.
Oh, it has to be at the moment as well.
Well, I
mean,
well,
the first club to do the double in the 20th century.
No, I'm not.
Oh, right,
no. Don't start busting out Ricky Villa on me. Okay, so
okay.
and the here and now, what have we got to be cheerful about?
I think that, I'll list a load that I've got on top of my head. So Lucas Berryvale, I think, is a player that I wouldn't swap for any other young player apart from Lamine Yamal in Europe right now, based on the end of last season. I'm that excited by him. I think he's someone that most clubs would dream of, that we've got right within our grasp. We're European champions, second tier European champions, if that's what counts. I think we've got a wonderful left centre back in Mickey van der Ven that, again, if we can keep him fit, I wouldn't swap him in that role for anyone else in the Premier League. I think we've got the commercial footings to be competitive within the top four if we leverage it correctly. I'm not saying that's beating Man City and Liverpool, but I think to re-establish ourselves in top four, seek external investment, and then finally get back to challenging for a title again. And I feel like I'm optimistic in the sense that we went so close when we had so much less before. We can do it again. We've got more now to go stronger. We've got the stadium. We've got the additional commercial revenue we've got a better recruitment structure than we did last time when we went so close under Poch. So why not dream that we could potentially do it again? I think we've got a sensible choice in manager who's going to continue to stick to the attacking philosophies that we love. And I think those are the main things I'm optimistic about. But I've got to be realistic as well. I can't see any world in which we're going to go challenge for a title next season or necessarily even the season after. But I think if we stick with this recruitment model of signing up all these world-class youngsters and we coach them properly, I think 2028 Spurs could be one that does surprise everyone and come out and really go for that kind of like Poch style title challenge again, but actually perhaps gets it over the line this time.
So
you're going with 2028 is when is the dream will be realised. Okay, so Connor, now this you got to be this to be clear. This bit is the reasons to be cheerful bit. Okay.
Yeah. I feel like I try to be balanced. So I agree with some of the points Jim made. I love Bergvall. I love Van der Ven. So the players he mentioned. I think for me the big one is I was a big advocate for Frank. before he was hired in terms of who I'd like to see as a replacement for Ange. So, to give Levy some credit for something that might upset some of our viewers, but
Hang on,
for
can you
me,
just say that sentence again, Connor?
I said it really quick. It's going to lose some credit.
Wi-Fi's gone again.
I actually thought he made the tougher decision, actually, in light of all of the post-Europa League euphoria of sacking Ange. I think that was the tougher decision for him to make, and so, and for me, it was the right one. So I'm actually, I'm optimistic about Frank. I think we've got a proper coach, and I think we've got someone who will raise the floor considerably. There is no chance we finish 17th under Frank. So I'm more optimistic about that. I think, as I say, I like the Kudus signing. I think he'll offer something a bit different. I think, those are my main ones. I think, to Jim's point, we do have the platform to really have a go if we get the right owners and investors in. So please God, these rumours that have gone a little bit quiet again are true. I'm holding on to a very faint light of optimism on that point, but I think those are the main ones for me. Frank is the big one.
I was going to say Udogie as well. I forgot about him. Special shout out to him.
Oh yeah, I love Udogie as well. Yeah.
So just before we move on, I just said, Jim, I think you and the guys on your channel were very, very Ange in and very supportive of Ange till near the end. What's on reflection now, and now that he's gone, was that the right decision?
So our stance was we were defensive of the messages going around that this guy didn't understand tactics, he didn't understand football, he just went all out attack. And fast forward 2 years, and we're still seeing the same screenshot from Chelsea, 9 men. Look at this high line, because they haven't got evidence of it happening consistently over the next season. So they're just going back a year to keep hammering home a point that we haven't adapted or changed. And we felt things did improve, like set pieces did get better. Actually, statistically, we didn't concede as many goals as was made out, even though we were horrendously exposed every time we lost the ball in the final third to a counter-attack. And we felt like he was, in hindsight, and we kind of were quite positive about the window initially. And then when it came to it, we kind of conceded defeat in the sense to our own arguments that he was left short in that transfer window. And I think any manager was left terribly short and set up to fail when they tried to compete across multiple competitions. And that he did something that we've desperately needed. And his biggest strength when he was first linked with us that we wanted to see was a manager that could overhaul the culture of the club and get them thinking more like we are and can win something, rather than it would be nice to win something. And I think he brought that. But anyone saying it's madness you sacked a manager when you came 17th is being disingenuous or biased or letting feelings get in the way of reality, right? You don't come 17th by doing everything right and just being unlucky. I think 17th is an exaggerated finish because we did start turning a blind eye to the league games, but it's still, even if we'd come 12th, would have been not really an acceptable league performance and warranted sacking, right? So I feel it was the hard decision, like Connor said, the harder one to get rid of him, but the most sensible decision to make. Even though I would have, at the time, I felt even if we'd gone for Thomas Frank in January, this January coming, I still think we could have convinced him to come, which is why I was kind of like, should we just see if the guy who's delivered on every promise he's ever made in football is going to deliver on the season 3 mic drop thing? And if it doesn't, 6 months feels a long time in football, but it's really not. We'll go get the sensible manager and do bring home the sensible girlfriend this time instead of the other one, but that your mum tells you to stay away from. But I just want to give you a third metaphor there.
That's very impressive. We've had 3 metaphors tonight.
But look, I think Frank is the right decision to bring in. I think he's a great coach, and I think he's what we need for now. But if we'd kept Ange, I would have been excited to see the next 6 months, but I wouldn't have been surprised if it had been a disaster. Do you know what I mean? But I wouldn't have been completely shocked if it all turned around. So it was such a risky move to hold on to him. I think the club had to make a decision to bring in structure amongst the chaos.
I think if Man United hadn't won the FA Cup and last season and hadn't kept on Ten Hag, Ange would still be there now, because Levy always reacts to something, and I think he just looked at the United Ten Hag season and then winning the cup, and he said, I think that was a factor as well. We're running out of time here, so very, very quickly, I just want to do. Now, this is kind of like, this is all our graphics in one go of utter grumpiness. So, Jim, I am going to ask you, have you any reasons to be grumpy about us at the moment?
I think most people are going to be grumpy because of the transfer window, right? It's just a bit too quiet, but then I can't really get... That's more anxiety than grumpiness, because we just operate... we operate so silently in the window. Obviously, as a fan, it was more fun knowing the rumours, knowing what's going on, knowing you're at least trying to get players over the line. Equally, I'm sure we'd be throwing hissy fits because we'd know about the players we're missing out on that we just never know ever happened in the background as well, that we never knew we'd missed, even gone for. So yeah, I think I'm going to be a bit grumpy if we go off on that pre-season tour, which is getting pretty close, and we've only got one major signing in. I think I'll start to get a bit grumpy at that, because I think good recruitment underpins any manager's tenure. And let's not set Frank up for a more difficult time than it needs to be. Let's give him a platform to overachieve on expectations. Let's not give him a platform where he's most likely going to be deemed as an underachiever because he didn't have the squad he needed. I still think we'll bring in those two other senior players. But that's the only thing I'm a bit grumpy about, is I want the euphoria of a signing, and I haven't had it yet, apart from kudos. Yeah.
Okay, that's potentially the most grumpy I've ever heard you. So, Connor, we haven't got long, so reasons to be grumpy.
No, I mean, look, for me, I think there obviously is still time left in the transfer window, but I am similarly worried, and probably more strongly worried, about the lack of action so far, particularly when you look at what our rivals are, or should be our rivals, are doing. We do have to remind ourselves we finished 17th last year, and to Jim's point, we've only signed one player for the starting 11 since then. Obviously, Tao was signed, but he was there during that debacle, and similarly with Dan. So yeah, that worries me. Liverpool win the league and they go and sign 4 players for their starting 11. And it's all done and dusted. They're in for pre-season. They're ready to go. Similarly, Arsenal it looks like Gyökeres is going to get across the line. So that's, at least 2 players for their starting 11 plus squad depth. Chelsea have obviously made signings. Even United have done more tangible business than us now that they've got Mbeumo over the line. So Kuna and Mbeumo are both going to go into their starting 11, and obviously they lost the Europa final to us and also equally finished in the bottom half. So yeah, look, that worries me, and I think we need to see significant movement in the next couple of weeks. I have concerns, given the data we have available to us, that might not happen. Is my pessimistic view of it. But yeah, let's see. I do agree with Jim's point. I mean, he mentioned it earlier. I do think there has been an improvement to the recruitment generally, with some of the exciting young talents, but all of us just want to see that complemented with established first team signings. And I don't think anyone is particularly asking for us to do a huge amount of work and do, I think it's, what do we want? We want to get Gibbs White over the line. We want someone who can play in that number 6 position, probably someone who can cover at left centre back, left back, and then perhaps another exciting attacking signing. But, I don't think anyone is, drastically saying we need to rip up the whole squad at this stage. And I think that would be good progress to make.
Yeah, I mean, look, for me, it's a number 6, a left-footed centre-back, because we covered for left-back, because I think Spence can play there. And I think we need a striker as a backup. And there's a lot more than Gibbs White, great. A number 6, a left-footed centre-back, and we could spend 20 million on it. I'm not that bothered about spending a lot of money. and then something up top as a backup for Solanke and get rid of Richarlison. We are out of time. Jim is making progress through series 1 of The Sopranos, which I highly recommend. So we need for him to get back to that. So before we finish off, Jim, do you want to plug the channel?
Yeah. So Oh So Spurs is the channel. Connor's on there as well. You can see him occasionally popping in, doing this.
This is like a Coldplay moment that we've got the cam and we've caught you two because he's cheating on us. But carry on.
No, Connor came on. It was about a month ago now. I think time's bloody flown. But
yeah, it's flown. We need to do our second one, don't we?
Yeah, we're planning a second one because we like to do episodes around finance. Because it's a really interesting topic for us anyway. I find it. Don't know if everyone else listening does, but I do for some reason. And we do some alongside. We did a recent one which is quite interesting. We had the head of youth recruitment for QPR on alongside. Who's a Spurs fan, and an A licensed coach on as well, and JJ, and went over their kind of assessment of Thomas Frank so far and what they're expecting to see differently. So that's a bit of fun. Maybe you want to check that out. But you've got plenty of great content here, so it's up to you, really.
I mean, it's funny you say it because we did we had our transfer committee convened for the old keep or sell, and we had the sell transfer committee, and our loan out policy is to send everyone to QPR. Because it's London, it's a nice part of London, and that's what we do. That's why we always said that Brian Hill should have been loaned out to QPR. So there you go. So look, check out Jim's content. Oh So Spurs is a great channel, and just to check in. So the start of this, we did talk about the fact that would we make Jim slightly grumpy about Tottenham by the end of this, or will he make us more optimistic? Jim, are you feeling a bit grumpy? I don't think you are. I think you're still optimistic, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm still optimistic.
Yeah, we haven't worn you down at all, have we?
And I think it's the first time I've been on since you rebranded, so I'm happier.
With the rebrand or the fact we don't eat cheese anymore?
You had me back on again.
Oh, well, there we go. There we go. There you go. Connor, are you feeling more optimistic?
I'm in the same boat. I think. I'm easily pleased though. If we suddenly get Gibbs White over the line tomorrow, I'll suddenly be feeling a bit happier. But let's see. I think we've got a lot of work still to do in this transfer window. But what I am feeling more optimistic about is going to Tottenham next season, sitting in the South Stand, and hopefully seeing us win more than 6 or 7 games or whatever it was.
That's actually probably.
I think that will happen.
That is actually, I think, talking about the thing I'm most excited about. That is it. It's last season as a season ticket holder as well. Completely underestimated how painful it would be to live out the hypothetical situation that could never possibly happen in real life of coming 17th but winning a trophy. It actually happened, and it was so much more painful than I ever expected it to be. It was worth it, but I never want to do it again. So I want to see us win at home regularly again, and a defeat at home to be a rarity, not an expected outcome. So yeah, that's what I'm most looking forward to.
Excellent. So just rounding this off and working out the fact that you both have celebrated children being born over the weekend, I think that I'm working it out that your children would conceive that the euphoria of the appointment of Conte and Nuno going. So you might want to check that in with your other halves, but that's what I reckon. So on that bombshell, Jim, thanks very much for joining us. Connor, lovely to see you back. If you can like, subscribe, follow us on all the usual social media platforms. We are back now, Grumpy Old Spurs. Lads of Tottenham, we are now back for our 5th season. We will be back next Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Gibbo might be back. Leon might be back, and we'll be talking all things Tottenham. So thank you very much for tuning in. I am now, as usual, going to cock up doing the outro. Thanks very much, and see you all soon. Goodbye. Come on, Spurs. There you go. I've cocked up the outro. We'll do that one more time. Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
See ya.